Hello guys and gals, and welcome! So today I got confirmation that the Paladin, believe it or not, is going to be in Diablo 4. You might be asking, what confirmation did I get? Well, there's been a lot of hints and little tips, and there was a little leak a little while ago that showed a Holy Knight Crusader. A lot of people have put in some speculation that Vigo may in fact be a Paladin, but in general, a lot of us, I think most of us, would really like to see a Paladin in Diablo 4. Because why not? I mean, the Paladin is just one of the most beloved characters, right alongside the Sorceress, the Necromancer, the Barbarian, and so forth and so on. And it just kind of makes sense, and he looks good standing there in the gates of hell, doesn't he? So I do have some confirmation, and I'm going to bring that up on the screen real quick for you guys, so you guys can see what I'm talking about, you know, basically it being confirmed that the Paladin is now going to be in Diablo 4, and it's right here. Oh, come on, y'all should have known better. It's April 1st, okay? It's April 1st. I had to try and get you guys with something. All right, but let's take a second here, and let's actually talk about this, and let's think about why the Paladin might actually be in the game. First off, they have really kind of avoided going with the old Diablo 3 staples. For instance, there's no Witch Doctor, there's no Monk, there's no Crusader. They left the Wizard out entirely. And quite honestly, like all of the classes that were specific to Diablo 3 have just kind of been ignored. The only two classes that were in Diablo 3 that made it into Diablo 4 were also classes that were in Diablo 2. For instance, the Druid has never been in Diablo 3 and has made it into Diablo 4. The Barbarian and the Necromancer were in both games, and it's definitely apparent that we have both of those characters in Diablo 4 as well. And on top of that, the Rogue, which originally started in Diablo 1 and made her way to Diablo 2, but was never in Diablo 3, has also made it into the game, which gives me high hopes that the Paladin could very well be one of the next classes. Now, the other two classes that are in Diablo 2, the Assassin and also the Amazon, are kind of in the game already, and I'm just not really quite sure if they're actually going to be put in the game directly. If you haven't played the Rogue yet, the Rogue is really just kind of like three characters all mashed together. And you can totally play the Rogue as a ranged-only character and get kind of the same exact feeling as playing a ranged boson, basically, from the Bow Amazon. And the Trapper, the Trap Assassin, kind of has very similar things going on with the Trap Tree on the Rogue. So it's actually kind of interesting that both of those trees seem to be represented in the class. The melee side seems to be sort of similar to the Assassin, the melee Assassin, which is interesting. And although there's no javelin side of the tree, like the Amazon has the javelin side of the tree, it does really seem like the Rogue was meant to be kind of like a combination of Amazon and Assassin together. And of course, there's also the dagger aspect of it, which kind of leans more toward a stealthy rogue-like character, which of course gives the rogue kind of like her own identity, while still seemingly borrowing from the other two classes entirely. Now, if, as it seems to be, they are shying away from putting the Diablo 3 characters in the game, then I think it's obvious that we will never see for instance, the Crusader, which is the opposite of the Paladin. The Paladin and the Crusader are definitely at odds with each other, and if you ask most people, around 80%, I've actually done multiple polls on this, by the way, around 80% of the people will choose Paladin over Crusader any day of the week. And honestly, it's my suspicion that the people that choose Crusader probably have never really played Paladin or had fun with the class. Now, what makes the Paladin so special and why people love this class and why it would be so amazing in Diablo 4 as well as it is in Diablo 2? Well, the Paladin auras are really a big part of the class. I mean, 2 entire trees are dedicated to auras on this particular class, and because of this, not only does the Paladin have some very strong offensive auras, but he also has some very strong defensive auras as well. And having a cacophony of auras that he can choose from makes him an extremely powerful class. Now, I'm a little bit worried, though, is if they translate the Paladin into Diablo 4, that a lot of those auras may be lost. If we take a look at the Necromancer and how they translated the Necromancer over, one thing that you will definitely see is that the Necromancer is not quite as amazing in curses as the Diablo 2 Necromancer. So the Diablo 2 Necromancer has, a wealth of curses: amplify damage, decrepify, Iron Maiden, life tap, weaken, confuse, attract. Literally, like, just you could go on and on and on, because there's an entire tree of curses that this Necromancer has. It's like a Swiss Army knife of tools that this particular character can, call upon at any particular moment. Well, the Paladin also has this going on, and in Diablo 4, they kind of really took away a lot of that Swiss Army knife magic that the Necromancer had with his curses. And amplify damage has been relegated to a passive. Iron Maiden and Decrepify still exist, but all the rest of the curses have basically been taken away, which is a little sad. Now, when it comes to the Paladin, I mean, he has things that will enhance your defense, enhance your resistances to specific elements. He has abilities that will make you attack faster, abilities that will dish out more damage. He has things that bring down the resistances of monsters, which, by the way, Diablo 4 monsters actually do have resistances, and so bringing down the resistances would be good. Obviously, some of the more popular builds, like the Hammerden or the Fist of the Heavens Paladin, would be very interesting. And honestly, I think a lot of people would like to play the Paladin if we could potentially get this in Diablo 4. I personally am a big Paladin fan. I have 3 favorite classes. I don't like to say I have one favorite class. I like to say I have 3 favorite classes. My 3 favorite classes are the Paladin, the Amazon, and the Necromancer. And as of right now, only one of those really exists in Diablo 4, which is quite sad. So I would like to see them add another. Now, while I don't necessarily think they're going to add the Amazon or the Assassin into the game, I feel like the Paladin is a definite possibility. Now, Vigo, which is a holy knight of the Cathedral of Light, could very well be a Paladin-type class. Now, he's not specifically going to be this Paladin, and I think it's very important to point this out. So the difference between this Paladin and what might be another Paladin is that this Paladin serves the Holy Zakarum Church. The Zakarum faith is a very specific faith, and just like any other religion, there are multiple different denominations. But the Cathedral of Light is a completely different religion than the Zakarum faith, which means that if Vigo is a Paladin, and if Vigo does represent the class that we are to have, then he's not the Paladin that we know and love. Take, for instance, the Crusader. The Crusader is the same faith as my boy here, but he's a different denomination. He's a different sect of the Zakarum faith. And that's why the Crusader is such a different beast entirely than this Paladin. From everything that I can gather about our boy here, he follows a very specific teaching of the Zakarum faith, and it is probably the one that is truest to its real form, I guess would be the term, whereas the Crusader seems to follow a more corrupted version of the same thing. And this is basically what happened to the Zakarum faith, is that the Zakarum religion became more and more corrupted over time, and so less and less of the pure nature of the religion was maintained. So if the Paladin manages to return, he's going to have to return from some sort of like very strict sect of the Zakarum faith, which still follows true to the old religion, in the old ways, not in the new ways. But that leads us toward the Cathedral of Light. So the Cathedral of Light is a religion based around Honorius. And if Vigo does represent the Cathedral of Light, then he is a Paladin that worships an angel, basically. And as we saw with Vigo, not to give any spoilers, he is definitely a devout follower of the Cathedral of Light. And it definitely did seem like he had some holy powers, and it seemed like he pulled upon some strength that wasn't otherwise there. I'm actually really excited to find out whether or not they are going to be adding one. Now, there are some other rumors, and this is a very interesting one, is that they are maybe adding a Valkyrie as a class, as a playable class. And I'm not exactly sure about this rumor, because this rumor is a little odd, but the Valkyrie as a playable class does seem pretty interesting. I mean, obviously, she's a melee character. Use spear user primarily, holy attacks. In Diablo 2, the Valkyrie was a very powerful creature. In fact, you could pretty much get her strong enough that she could literally like solo the Ubers for you. I kid you not. I'm not entirely sure how they would go about actually creating a class around this character. But, you know, interestingly enough, the Rogue, which was, of course, in Diablo 1, I mean, what did she do? She literally shot a bow and what? Disarm traps? I think that was her other ability. So she literally shot a bow and disarmed traps. That was literally her whole entire shtick. And in Diablo 2, she was capable of firing some, you know, specific bow skills. Like in the beginning, it was just fire arrow and cold arrow, and then eventually it became exploding arrow and freezing arrow in Diablo 2 Resurrected. But for the most part, she didn't really have a whole lot going for her in terms of abilities. She did have the Amazon's inner sight ability, which is not unique to the Amazon because of that, and did lower down the defenses of the target. I mean, overall, they just kind of created a character, right? So they just took a character that existed within the world, which is the Rogue, and then built upon that in a way that made it into a viable character, right? So in the same way, they could take the Valkyrie and they could build upon the Valkyrie and turn it into a viable character. But I'm not exactly sure if that is the direction that they're going to be going. I definitely feel like we're missing the holy character, though. I mean, we have the undead necromancer. You know, we have our character that is more based around, like, you know, science and traps and like things that are less magical and more physical. We've got our meaty barbarian. I mean, our barbarian is always here. He was in Diablo 2, he's in Diablo 3, now he's in Diablo 4. And they brought the druid back, and I'm really kind of excited about the druid. I'm hoping that as we go forward and we find out more about the character, more about the unique items, more about the legendary affixes, that we find some very interesting and unique builds. A little bit of a spoiler, if you don't want to hear this, you know, feel free to turn the video off. But there is some unique items that have been data mined, and they basically allow your druid to maintain his werewolf or werebear form as a permanent form, so that it is your true form, and you never change back into your human form, which is pretty darn cool. And that apparently is a item that you can find later on in the game, which is pretty cool. So I'm pretty excited to find out what characters. I do apologize to all you guys for tricking you, but it is April Fool's, and we need some pretty good April Fool's jokes to get us through the day. As always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.